Okay, firstly off the bat, I just want to say that I do believe that the Apollo missions were real. They happened, and went to the moon, and something happened. There's loads of evidence for it, and I know you'll sit there and I'll have to listen to people saying, "Well, what about that you can't move through space at high speed because you'd be blown off like out the window?" Because they think there's drag in space, this kind of thing from air. And what about the thing looked like a tinfoil can? And it's all nonsense. They went to the moon. A lot of the people are the same ones who. Now, I'm not saying NASA are a pure organization; they're as dodgy as anything. But in terms of the lunar missions, the Russians would have been the first to say they faked it. Chinese, the rest. And they didn't. My belief is, like I've said over and over again, and until I've got more evidence to prove otherwise, that the something happened to them up there, and that's what this video is about. Space is strange. Okay, now I firmly believe that NASA and cosmologists and all the scientists don't really understand what space and the universe is. It's a complete mystery to them. But that's not to say it doesn't exist or anything like that, and effects of it doesn't exist, and I'll talk about that in a minute. For example, I have looked through a 12-inch telescope at a university, and also my home telescope was a smaller one when I was a kid. I've seen the rings of Saturn. I've seen the red spot of Jupiter with my own eyes. I've seen the moons of Jupiter, the four big ones, changing position each night. I've seen the surface features on Mars, and I've seen Venus as just a white ball. And so yes, the that's all real. We're looking at this stuff in the telescopes. Now people say when I zoom in my P900, all I see is stars or these kind of weird things. That's the pixel sensor inside your camera. It's not powerful enough to look at a star. It's just a point of light. Now that's what that's all about. Those things you see hexagons and things like that. That's the pixel sensor in your camera, overexposed and out of focus. But yes, space is extremely strange, and that's what the video is about in terms of the spiritual and occult aspects of the cosmos, and particularly in this video in terms of what the moon is. Now, David Icke has people traumatized and believing that the moon is a reptilian machine to control human minds and perceptions. He's entitled to his beliefs. That's okay. It's not true, because there's lots, and it is not, and there's lots of reasons why. A lot of that comes from Christianity, the fear of the moon representing evil, the devil, and all this werewolves and all this vampires and all this kind of thing. The moon is remarkable, and for someone who talks about we shouldn't have fear or we should not let fear overtake us, he has millions of people traumatized looking up at the full moon, shaking in their boots, and I don't particularly think that's a good thing. It's a fear-based situation, no different than the same politicians he puts down saying, they have you in a fear consciousness. Well, we're looking at the moon and thinking that and believing that aliens, reptilians are controlling your thought program is the same thing, Mr. Ike. I'm sorry, it just is. Disrespectfully, I might add. Now, but you're entitled to your opinion, and that's life. Now, regarding the moon, okay, I totally get where Mr. Ike is coming from with the anomalies and the oddness of the moon. It is absolutely strange. And for instance, I'll give you and this is why it's connected so much to sorcery and magic. Now, for instance, Theo Chalmers, who you all remember from, was it that channel 200 on? I was on a show years ago, on Facebook, mentioned something I've often thought about myself. Why does the full moon have a powerful gravitational effect upon the Earth when it has the same mass, body, and distance that a dark moon has, except that only thing it's getting the full light of the sun in relative to where the Earth is viewing it from? Okay, now that's a phenomenal question. Firstly, we've always known, and it's been always confirmed, that high tides are caused by the moon. Lunar high tides. We've known this going back many thousands of years in human history. It's been observed. And moons are used to, the full moons will do things like make flowers, certain flowers bloom, or animals migrate, and has a lot of interesting, a lot of effect on the on the sea life. The moon shouldn't be any different gravitational wise as a full moon than it is as a crescent moon, because the body and the mass is the same, the distance from the Earth is the same. Now, if you have a super moon where it's a bit closer to the Earth, you would have effects of gravitation and mass. Therefore, we're being lied to. Now, that does not mean that there's a rabbi in NASA who is inventing uh, space programs to keep you from believing in the mud flood and the flat Earth. No, you see, some is bullshit and some is true. Okay. Now, that suggests to me that there's a process going on here. That the light from the moon, not the gravity, has this effect. There's something in moonlight that is causing it. It's now, if you take the point, now as a pagan, I believe the Earth is alive. It's a living, conscious thing. It's been well known that the full moon creates lunacy. That people in psychiatric hospitals have to be given extra uh, medication around the full moon. People I know, and I see them on Facebook all the time, right before the full moon, they'll start posting the vegans will all start posting the worst animal porn stuff. Anyone who's in your life who's unhinged will start flaring up, and this kind of thing. It affects women's menstrual cycles. The Earth is a woman, right? The tides may be Gaia's menstrual cycle, something like that. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. And the other way of looking at it is that the light from the moon has a peculiar quality, and that's the one I tend to go with. That the light from the moon has a peculiar quality that's not fully understood, like most things in cosmology. They recently just discovered that the Earth is not, the universe is not flat. That we're probably in a circular or a ball or a wavy shaped universe. This is the kind of nonsense we're dealing with in cosmology. Space is strange. This is why they go to space. They have things like the ISS, and they're in Earth orbit. Remember, they don't leave the You hear these things like gravitational velocity to escape the Earth is 14,000 miles an hour, 40,000 kilometers, whatever. But that's to escape the gravitational pull. That's not the same thing as what the ISS and satellites do and the shuttle do. They go into Earth orbit by taking off in a curve and then arcing, and then this way they get out. Once they're up 3,000 or 4,000 feet, the air starts thinning, so they're moving very fast. Then they don't have as much drag. By the time they get into the stratosphere, there's no drag at all. Then it's just a matter of curving around into Earth orbit and then maintaining the Earth orbit at that rotational speed. That's what they do. They don't go straight up. That's why you have these flat earthers posting photographs of a spaceship taking up and curving, and they're going, why are they going back down again? They're not going back down, they're going around the Earth. They go up like this. Like when you sit in an airplane, the airplane doesn't go like this. It goes like that. Okay? Same thing. Now, and then some of the stuff you see is unbelievable. Like if they're traveling at 14,000 miles an hour outside the space shuttle, how come they're not blown away if I can't put a cup of coffee outside the window of the car? That's because there's no drag, and velocity speed is not. I'm not going to go there. See, this is the problem. Yes, there are weird things with NASA, but you jump on all the easily debunked stuff to make you look like everyone's a kook who has any issue with NASA. Now, back to the moon. For me, the most remarkable effect of the moon is, why is it 18 to 20% bigger when it's rising on the horizon? When I was in school and watching Patrick Moore on the Sky at Night, they told us that because as the Earth's atmosphere bends, at the edge, it acts like a lens, and it makes now we know why it's red, because of particles in the atmosphere. That makes perfect sense, like the sun is red. It makes it look like bigger than it is, but the sun, that doesn't happen to the sun. It should happen to the sun, but the sun stays the same size when it's rising and setting. It's only the moon that's bigger. And you want to piss off a reductionist materialist scientist, you ask them to explain, why is the moon 18% bigger as it's rising than it is when it's up in the sky? And they will give you that answer and say, no, that was debunked decades ago. doesn't work like that. And if it was true, the stars and the moon would be much, and the sun would be much bigger at when rising. Like, come on, tell us the next one. Eventually, you will see their psychiatric episodes kicking in because they're rattling through their head for Richard Dawkins quotes and so on. And the fact is, and there's the only thing they've come up with is a quantum theory to explain it. The fact is, they don't fucking know why the moon is 18% bigger when it rises. Minimum. They don't know. And if they say they know, they're liars. They don't know. And it's one of these things that moonlight makes no sense. The moon, in many ways, makes no sense. But it is there. It is absolutely there. I've seen it myself on telescope. You've seen it with it's there, right? It's been always been there. The moon also strongly, like no other body in the universe, affects human consciousness. This is why not only do you have lunacy, it's associated with dreams and intuition, particularly with women, menstrual cycles. In Indo-European paganism, the moon was central. You have in the Hindu tradition today the moon in the pool, where a woman is engaged on the night that the full moon is in a pool. This is still, it's captured in water. The Hindu houses will have a ceremonial pool in the backyard filled with water. So when the full moon is reflected in the moon, it's capturing the magic of the moon. The moon is always associated with magic, sorcery, mystery, and the unknown. And it still maintains that way. The full moon should not have any different effect on the tides than a regular moon. It's something to do with moonlight. And this is why moonlight seems to have a magical property. This is why it's captured by so many people in things like drinking water. It's used to charge crystals. It's used to affect consciousness. It's associated with mythology, folklore, and myth. The moon is odd. Now, I'm not going to go explain what I believe about the moon landings. I'll put the infamous link to my theory below. You don't know any less than me, and I don't know any less than you. So therefore, instead of stop smoking 40 spliffs a day, right? And learn how to accept another person's theories, okay? And take them on board, rather than assuming that the latest thing you saw on the YouTube video must be the truth. Also, when you point out photographs like NASA saying, it looks like the spaceship is made from tin foil and cardboard. Well, firstly, the shuttle would be made of thin foil and cardboard because they have to keep the weight down as light as possible. Secondly, you seem to think that they're sitting inside something with the air on. They're in an air-conditioned environment. They're inside something that just keeps radiation off them and has stuff they need inside it. They're still wearing their spacesuits inside and breathing. They're not sitting inside there making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and playing ping pong. That's just basically a place they can lie down. It doesn't need to be made of anything other than rubbish because it is not affected by a drag or anything. It's all it has to do is keep radiation off electrical equipment. Tin foil is enough for that. You see, you're not thinking. And also, NASA loves when you point those pictures out and saying, "Oh look, it's made out of cardboard. I'm smarter than smart than they are." GMO skunk. I saw the YouTube video. Busted GMO skunk. And then it's the easiest thing in the world for them to debunk and make everyone look like an asshole. Even people who have intelligent and educated opinions about cosmology and science. They pick the easiest things for you to debunk. That's why they throw these pictures out there. But the thing they want you believing that the whole moon thing was a hoax. They want you believing that. You know why they want you to believe it? The same reason they're flooding the media with pictures of Venice under its normal, average, regular flooding this morning, to take and have you all hysterical about the world is about to be flooded. To take your mind off the fact that the German economy has just died. And so will the EU be next. The same reason they do things to take your mind off Epstein. They also give you bullshit things, hoax. Remember, the conspiracy is the conspiracy always. So they give you bullshit hoax things about fake moon landings so you don't wake up to the real thing. That space is a psychedelic experience. And once human beings are outside Earth orbit, the rules on this planet and gravitational pull on this planet do not apply out there. That's where the shaman go. That's where Darwinism doesn't work. That's where their science, their electronics, their physics fails. And they don't have answers for it. And it's much easier for them to put out there and to feed a moon landing hoax than to actually tell you what really happened to those astronauts while they were up there and why every last one of them were profoundly changed as human beings. They were either destroyed by it or they became mystics. And you think about that before you watch Reptilian Resistance 2012 moon landing host video and think you know it fucking all. Because 90% of the stuff they're feeding you will have been fed to you by NASA. The moon is weird. Deep space is weird. And we don't even know what's happening out there. And guess what? They don't want you figuring out. They want you lost in conspiracy or else lost in the mainstream so you don't figure out that there's a spiritual identity to space, and in particular, the relationship between the moon, moonlight, and you, your soul.